Welcome to the Amaravati Today Daily World News Roundup, where we bring you the latest, most important developments from across the globe. Kabul. Afghan Taliban officials will attend a major United Nations climate conference that starts next week, the Afghan Foreign Ministry said on Sunday, the first time they have attended since the former insurgents took power in 2021. The COP29 Climate Summit in Azerbaijan's capital Baku will be among the highest-profile multilateral events attended by Taliban administration officials since they took control in Kabul after 20 years of fighting NATO-backed forces. Moscow. Ukraine attacked Moscow on Sunday with at least 34 drones, the biggest drone strike on the Russian capital since the start of the war in 2022. Forcing flights to be diverted from 3 of the city's major airports and injuring at least one person. Russian air defenses destroyed another 36 drones over other regions of western Russia in 3 hours on Sunday, the Defense Ministry said. Washington. Republicans on Saturday were close to clinching control of the U.S. House of Representatives, a critical element for President-elect Donald Trump to advance his agenda when he returns to the White House in January. With votes still being counted from the November 5th general election, Republicans had won 213 seats in the 435-member House, according to Edison Research, which projected on Saturday night that Representative Jeff Hurd had enough votes to keep Republican control of Colorado's 3rd congressional district. Beirut. At least 23 people, including 7 children, were killed and 6 others injured in an Israeli strike on Almat in Lebanon's Mount Lebanon province, the country's health ministry said on Sunday, adding that the death toll was likely to climb. 3 people were also killed and 2 others wounded in an Israeli strike on Mashkara in the western part of Lebanon's Bekaa Valley late on Saturday, while 1 person was killed and 4 others injured in a strike on Samar, also in western Bekaa, that occurred the same night, the health ministry added. There was no immediate comment from the Israeli military, which says it is targeting Hezbollah militants in Lebanon. Cairo. Dozens of people were killed and wounded in an Israeli strike on a house in Jabalia in the northern Gaza Strip at dawn on Sunday, Palestinian medics said. Footage circulating on social media, which Reuters could not immediately verify, showed about a dozen bodies wrapped in blankets and laid on the ground at a hospital. Residents said the building that was hit had housed at least 30 people. Nearly 200 countries will gather next week for the UN Climate Summit, COP29. Reaching a consensus for a deal among so many can be difficult. Here are some of the major players and negotiating blocs involved in the COP29 summit starting November 11th in Baku, Azerbaijan. Dearborn, Michigan. Democrat Kamala Harris lost Michigan by more than 80,000 votes amid a nationwide shift to Republicans as union workers, Black voters, Arab Americans, and Muslims either failed to show up at the polls or cast their ballots for Donald Trump. It was a bracing loss, given the state is run by a high-profile Democratic governor who expanded voting rights, and it had only backed a Republican president once before in the past 22 years, Trump in 2016, and then by fewer than 11,000 votes. London. Britain's Princess Kate attended the Remembrance Sunday ceremony in London, her second public appearance in 2 days, as she gradually returns to public duties after her treatment for cancer. She watched from the balcony of a government building as members of the royal family, including King Charles, and politicians laid wreaths at the Cenotaph War Memorial in central London. Vilnius. Lithuania's Social Democrats, winners of last month's parliamentary election, defended on Saturday their decision to form a coalition government with a populist party whose leader is standing trial over alleged anti-Semitic statements. Nemunas Dawn Party founder and head, Remigius Zemetates, resigned from parliament in April ahead of an impeachment vote, after the Constitutional Court ruled he had broken his oath by stirring up hatred against Jews in social media posts last year. Beijing. China and Indonesia signed deals worth $10 billion at the Indonesia-China Business Forum in Beijing on Sunday, spanning sectors including food, new energy, technology, and biotechnology, Chinese state media reported. The forum followed a meeting on Saturday between Chinese President Xi Jinping and Indonesian President Prabowo Subianto, who is in China through November 10, the first country he has visited since taking office last month. Mexico City. Authorities in Guerrero, one of Mexico's most violent states, said Thursday they found the remains of 11 people in the capital Chilpancingo, marking what appears to be another grisly homicide weeks after the city's mayor was murdered and decapitated. The bodies were 9 men and 2 women, with 2 minors among the dead, and their identities were still unknown, the Office of Guerrero's Attorney General said in a statement. Port Louis. Mauritius was holding a parliamentary election on Sunday, with Prime Minister Pravind Kumar Jugnauth and his main rivals all promising to tackle a cost-of-living crisis in the Indian Ocean archipelago. The country of about 1.3 million people markets itself as a link between Africa and Asia, deriving most of its revenues from a flourishing offshore financial sector, tourism, and textiles. Mauritius also receives aid from China. Dubai. The General Chief of Staff of Saudi Arabia's Armed Forces, Fayyad al-Ruwaili, will visit Tehran on Sunday to meet with his Iranian counterpart and discuss defense ties, state media reported the Iranian Armed Forces General Staff as saying. The visit follows the election of Donald Trump, who will take office for a second term as U.S. President in January, and who has promised to bring peace to the Middle East. Valencia. Tens of thousands of people demonstrated in the eastern Spanish city of Valencia on Saturday over regional authorities' handling of devastating floods that killed more than 220 people in one of Europe's worst natural disasters for decades. In the latest demonstration over the floods, protesters filled the center of Valencia demanding the resignation of regional government leader Carlos Mazón and chanting, "Killers." London. A British minister said on Sunday that the government is unlikely to ask the Reform Party leader Nigel Farage to act as an intermediary to deal with U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. Farage, the Brexit campaigner and self-described troublemaker, is a friend of Trump and was at his election victory party in Florida. Dubai. UN nuclear watchdog chief Rafael Grossi will visit Iran next Wednesday and start consultations with Iranian officials the following day, state media reported on Sunday. The head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, said on Wednesday he might head to Iran in the coming days to discuss its disputed nuclear program and that he expected to work cooperatively with U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. Beijing. China rejected Philippine maritime claims on Sunday, saying new legislation severely infringes on Beijing's territorial sovereignty and rights in the South China Sea, and vowing to protect its own interests. Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. signed 2 laws on Friday to define the country's maritime entitlements and set designated sea lanes and air routes to reinforce sovereignty. At least 2 people were injured and buildings were damaged in an overnight Russian drone attack on Ukraine's southern region of Odessa, Ukrainian officials said on Sunday. The enemy has once again launched a massive attack on our region, the State Emergency Service of Ukraine in the Odessa region said on its social media account. Garages with cars and property were on fire, residential buildings, shops were damaged. Israel's effective use of air-launched ballistic missiles in its airstrikes against Iran is expected to pique interest elsewhere in acquiring the weapons, which most major powers have avoided in favor of cruise missiles and glide bombs. The Israel Defense Forces said its October 26 raid knocked out Iranian missile factories and air defenses in 3 waves of strikes. Researchers said that based on satellite imagery, targets included buildings once used in Iran's nuclear program. Ottawa, Canada has detected its first presumptive case of H5 bird flu in a person, a teenager in the western province of British Columbia, health officials said on Saturday. The teenager likely caught the virus from a bird or animal and was receiving care at a children's hospital, the province said in a statement. The United States will ship more than 500 interceptor missiles to Ukraine in the weeks ahead, speeding up Washington's military aid delivery to the war-ravaged country, the Wall Street Journal reported on Saturday. Citing an unnamed Pentagon official, the Wall Street Journal reported that before the U.S. presidential election, in which former Republican President Donald Trump defeated his Democratic rival, Vice President Kamala Harris, the U.S. administration had been aiming to deliver the remainder of its aid to Ukraine by April. Sydney. Staff at Australia's Parliament made 30 complaints of serious workplace offences, such as sexual assault, over 9 months, the Sydney Morning Herald reported on Sunday, as the legislature struggles to address a wave of scandals. The Parliamentary Workplace Support Service opened in October 2023 as a confidential service for federal parliament workers. It received 30 reports of serious wrongdoing out of 339 total cases in its initial 9 months of operation, October 2023 to June 2024, the newspaper said. Amsterdam. The attacks on Israeli football supporters in Amsterdam this week followed tensions that began brewing days before between the fans and pro-Palestinian activists and other people in the city, a chronology of events showed. Supporters of Israeli soccer team Maccabi Tel Aviv were targeted for beatings by groups of thugs in the early hours of Friday following a match with Amsterdam's Ajax, the city's mayor Femke Halsema has said. Rio de Janeiro. Brazil announced details of its new climate change pledge late on Friday night that sets a target to lower the country's greenhouse gas emissions by 2035, which it will present during the United Nations Climate Summit COP29 in Azerbaijan, according to a government statement. Why it's important. Brazil is the largest country in Latin America and one of the world's biggest emitters of climate-warming carbon dioxide. Jerusalem. Israel rejected on Saturday a group of global food security experts' warning of famine in parts of northern Gaza, where it is waging war against Palestinian militant group Hamas. Unfortunately, the researchers continue to rely on partial, biased data and superficial sources with vested interests, the military said in a statement. Ukraine's top military commander, Oleksandr Syrsky, said on Saturday that Ukraine faced increasing difficulties in its fight against Moscow's invasion as Russian forces advance and North Korean troops prepare to join the Kremlin's campaign. Syrsky, relating comments he made to a top U.S. general, said outnumbered Ukrainian forces faced Russian attacks in key sectors of the more than 2.5-year-old war with Russia. Quito. Ecuador's labor ministry has temporarily suspended Vice President Veronica Abad from office just 3 months before next year's elections, in which President Daniel Noboa will seek another term. Abad, who is also the South American country's ambassador to Israel, is accused of committing a serious disciplinary offense by failing to comply with an order from the foreign ministry to leave Israel and travel to Turkey before September 1st, due to security concerns during the conflict in Gaza, according to the resolution dated Friday but made public on Saturday. London. Britain's Princess Kate attended a Remembrance Day event in London on Saturday, in her latest public engagement after undergoing preventive treatment for cancer this year. Kate arrived for the Festival of Remembrance at London's Royal Albert Hall, wearing a black dress adorned with a red poppy, which has become a symbol of respect for those who have lost their lives in conflict. Beirut. Israeli airstrikes on Lebanon over the last day have killed at least 40 people, including several children, Lebanese authorities said on Saturday, after heavy Israeli bombardment pounded the southern suburbs of the capital Beirut overnight. At least 7 people were killed in the coastal city of Tyre late on Friday, Lebanon's health ministry said. The Israeli military has previously ordered swathes of the city to evacuate, but there were no orders published by the Israeli military spokesperson on social media platform X before Friday's strikes. Russian President Vladimir Putin ordered his interior ministry early on Sunday to increase efforts in suppressing extremism inside the country. Today, Russian citizens expect more dedication and new results from you in all key areas of work, Putin said in a congratulatory message to the Interior Ministry's employees on their professional holiday, which is celebrated in Russia on November 10th. Kyiv. EU Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell sought to reassure Ukraine of Europe's unwavering support on Saturday, days after Donald Trump's election win cast uncertainty over its war effort. Borrell, the first top EU official to visit Kyiv since Trump's win, said that the purpose of his visit was to stress EU support for Ukraine as its war with Russia nears 1,000 days. The International Criminal Court's governing body will launch an external investigation into its chief prosecutor Karim Khan over alleged sexual misconduct, 2 sources familiar with the matter said on Friday. Khan is called on in an internal document circulated to member states to temporarily step down from his role at the world's permanent war crimes court, based in The Hague, while an inquiry is ongoing. Washington federal and state authorities are investigating a wave of bigoted text messages sent anonymously that have spread alarm among Black Americans across the country this week, officials and recipients told Reuters. The messages urged recipients in multiple states, including Alabama, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Virginia, to report to a plantation to pick cotton, an offensive reference to past enslavement of Black people in the United States. Doha/Cairo. Qatar has told Palestinian militant group Hamas and Israel it will stall its efforts to mediate a Gaza ceasefire and hostage release deal until they show willingness and seriousness to resume talks, its foreign ministry said on Saturday. The Gulf country has been working alongside the United States and Egypt for months on fruitless talks between the warring sides in Gaza, and any disengagement from that process could further complicate efforts to reach a deal. Russian President Vladimir Putin signed into law a treaty on the country's strategic partnership with North Korea, which includes a mutual defense provision, according to a decree published on Saturday. The accord, signed by Putin and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in June after a summit in Pyongyang, calls on each side to come to the other's aid in case of an armed attack. West Palm Beach, Florida. Donald Trump's presidential transition effort said on Saturday that a Republican operative who outlined some potential contours of a U.S.-backed peace plan in Ukraine earlier in the day was not speaking on behalf of the president-elect. Brian Lanza, a longtime Republican strategist who was a contractor on Trump's 2024 campaign, said in an interview with the BBC that Trump's administration would be asking Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for a realistic vision for peace. Cairo/Gaza. A Gaza family sat weeping on Saturday over children killed by an Israeli strike as they were getting ready to play soccer, amid an intensified bombardment that Palestinian health authorities said has killed 44 people over the past 24 hours. The strike was in Mawasi, a southern coastal area where hundreds of thousands of people have sought shelter after Israel's military told them to leave other areas it was bombing in its war against Hamas. Amsterdam. Dutch Prime Minister Dick Schoof will miss the COP29 climate summit after clashes in Amsterdam this week between Israeli soccer fans and pro-Palestinian protesters as his government investigates if warning signs from Israel were missed. I will not be going to Azerbaijan next week for the UN Climate Conference COP29. Due to the major social impact of the events of last Thursday night in Amsterdam, I will remain in the Netherlands, he said on social media platform X. Lagos. Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu will call for an immediate ceasefire and peaceful resolution of the Israel-Palestinian conflict when he attends the upcoming Arab Islamic Summit in the Saudi Arabian capital Riyadh, his office said on Saturday. Nigeria will also advocate for renewed efforts to revive the two-state solution as a pathway for lasting peace in the region, said presidential spokesperson Bayo Onanuga. Dubai. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi denied U.S. charges that Tehran was linked to an alleged plot to kill Donald Trump and called on Saturday for confidence building between the two hostile countries. Now, a new scenario is fabricated. As a killer does not exist in reality, scriptwriters are brought in to manufacture a third-rate comedy, Araghchi said in a post on X. Quetta, Pakistan. At least 24 people were killed and more than 40 injured in a bomb blast on Saturday at a railway station in the city of Quetta in southwestern Pakistan, police and other officials said. Quetta is the capital of Balochistan province, which is grappling with a surge in strikes by separatist ethnic militants that has raised security concerns for projects aiming to develop the province's untapped mineral resources. Amsterdam. Amsterdam banned demonstrations for 3 days from Friday after overnight attacks on Israeli soccer supporters by what the mayor called anti-Semitic hit-and-run squads, and Israel sent planes to the Netherlands to fly fans home. Mayor Femke Halsema said Maccabi Tel Aviv fans had been attacked, abused, and pelted with fireworks around the city, and that riot police intervened to protect them and escort them to hotels. At least 5 people were treated in hospital. Toxic smog has shrouded Pakistan's eastern city of Lahore for days as surging pollution spurs authorities to curb activities and set up a panel to oversee preventive efforts. The capital of Pakistan's most populated province of Punjab, Lahore is just 25 kilometers, 16 miles, from the border with India, and is considered the cultural capital of the country. Pakistan's second-largest city after the southern port city of Karachi has a population of about 13 million and is a key hub for commerce, banking, and industry. Johannesburg, South Africa's border authority said on Saturday it had partially reopened its main crossing with neighbor Mozambique, where last month's disputed election sparked protests, raising safety concerns. Opposition supporters in Mozambique have been demonstrating against what they say is a fraudulent win by Frelimo, the party that has ruled the southern African country since 1975. Thermaic Gulf, Greece. When Anastasios Zakakis pulled up the ropes of his mussel farm in the Aegean Sea last month, the devastation was clear. The lines were not heaving with mollusks as they should be at harvest time, but were instead filled with cracked, empty shells. It is the second time in 3 years that record sea temperatures have hit the mussel harvest in northern Greece, where farmers said they saw a 90% drop in the 2024 catch. Next year will be a dud too, Zakakis said, because all the seed for the coming season also perished.